otra vez, bienvenidos. Welcome back for another lecture series. I'm going to be talking today about the verb ser, which means to be in Spanish, section 1.3 in our book Panorama. We're going to start talking about verbs and pronouns, and so we're going to give an overview of what that is. Again, if you're familiar with these concepts in English, it's going to be much easier. But we're going to talk about subject pronouns. Instead of saying somebody's name all the time, instead of saying, I saw John at the store, John was wearing a blue shirt, John is going to school, I talked to John about this, and then John told me this, we substitute that with pronouns. I saw John at the store, he was wearing a blue shirt, he and I talked. So we use he to represent John, and that's what a subject pronoun is. It's a pronoun that takes the place of the noun. As it says, it replaces the name or title of a person or thing and then acts as the subject of the verb. So I see John, I see him are the same thing. Or John told me this, he told me that, same thing. In both Spanish and English, subject pronouns are divided into three groups and are either singular or plural. We've already talked about singularity and plurality as well as gender, and we'll go through that here today with these pronouns as well. We have three persons when we talk. There's first person, which includes me, I am the speaker. First person singular is me as myself. First person plural is a group that includes me, so we say we or us. Second person is you. I'm talking to you. Then you are the person receiving the action. So that's you, second person. And second person plural would be a group of y'all. So if I'm talking to you students, then you are my second person plural group. I'm speaking to one of you, and that's my first person, or excuse me, my second person singular group. And then third person, that's them, him, her, they, somebody we're talking about that is not directly involved in this conversation, but is the subject. We're speaking about somebody. So first person is me, second person is you, third person is he or them. Same thing exists in Spanish. We have our pronouns. I, in Spanish, we say yo. So repeat that after me, yo. That's the Spanish word for I. Again, it's first person and it's singular. It's talking about me. Second person, we talked about this the other day. There are two forms. There's tú, which is an informal form. And then there's usted, which is a more formal form. Those are both second person singular. For third person, we have he or she, him, her, same thing, but the subject pronouns are he and she. For he, we say él. So clases repitan él. And for she, we have ella. Repitan, ella. Muy bien. So we have yo, tú, usted, él, or ella. First person, second person, third person. Those are singular. In the plural side, we have nosotros. So clases repitan, nosotros. We also have a form of female, a feminine, nosotras. And as we talked yesterday, or I say yesterday because that's when I recorded this video, and there's a talk in the other section about gender. If there are 300 women and one male, then it becomes a masculine group, even though it's predominantly female. So nosotros is when it's all male or when there's one male present. So if you were so I, for example, have never used the word nosotras, because if I'm talking about we and I'm including myself in that we, then it would always be nosotros. So you ladies in the class, you women, if you're talking about just a group of you and your friends and you're all female, you would use the form nosotras. So two ways to say it in English, to say we. Nosotros for males and or male-oriented group, and nosotras for females. Same thing with the second person plural. There's vosotros. So clases repitan vosotros. And there's also vosotras. Repitan vosotras. Muy bien. And then there's ustedes, which is the equivalent form of you all in the formality. And we'll come back to that here in a second. Then we have the plural of él, which is ellos. Clases repitan ellos. This is that double L that makes that Y sound. And we have, when they're female, ellas. Clases repitan ellas. So él is singular, ellos is plural. Ella is singular, ellas is plural. And same thing with ellos and ellas that we talked about with the other subject pronouns. Ellos can be all men, all males, or it can be any male in a group. and then ellas would be exclusively female. So even men would use the word ellas, talking about those women. Yesterday I saw all of my mom and all my sisters. They were going to the store. That would be an ellas. We're talking about a group of females. Okay, so those are our subject pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ustedes, ellos, and ellas. Okay, just another way of looking at it again. Same thing. First person, second person, third person, singular, and plural. So let's go and repeat these one more time. Yo, yo, tú, tú, usted, usted, él, él, ella, ella, nosotros, nosotros, nosotras, nosotras, vosotros, vosotros, vosotras, vosotras, ustedes, ustedes, ellos, ellos, ellas, ellas. Okay, muy bien. So you'll need to memorize those subject pronouns. Let me show you something that works for me. This is called a verb tree. It's just a graph with 6 boxes. In fact, I just drew a table and highlighted only the grids that are on the intersection. But this is a verb tree. And let me show you how this works. It's useful for verb conjugations, which we'll get to in just a second, as well as for these different pronouns. So in a verb tree, we have singular and plural across the top, and then first person, second person, and third person. So if you think of it as a matrix, first person singular in the top left box, first person plural in the top right box. So in English, our subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, and it, we, y'all, that's my texting coming out, and they. In Spanish, then, the pronouns that like we've seen are yo, tú, usted, él, ella, for the singular ones, and nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ustedes, ellos, and ellas. Those are the subject pronouns in Spanish. Now, I want to show you something really cool. In our class, in your classes here at ISU in Spanish, we are going to let you see that in Spanish, even though usted and ustedes is a second person form of talking, you're talking to somebody formally, the verbs are conjugated in the third person. Okay, so you'll understand when we get to the verb for ser, but just know that even though usted and ustedes are second person, you're talking to somebody, they follow a conjugation in verbs of the third person, singular and plural. And again, I'll show you that here in a second. And some good news for most of you is that vosotros and vosotras is only used in Spain. Ustedes is for Latin America, including all of everywhere except for Spain. Ustedes is not even a formal term, it's just y'all. So usted, the singular form, is a formal form, and we'll come to that in a minute, but ustedes is the only way that people outside of Spain, the only pronoun that exists for y'all. You'll see vosotros written as you get to a literature class, when you're reading in the Bible and it says ye, that's translated as vosotros, and so you'll see that. You'll need to be familiar with it, and you'll recognize it as a vosotros form, but we're not going to require you to learn that conjugation of those verbs. So we take one out for you, okay? So 2 different ways of saying you. There's singular, there's tú and usted. Use tú when addressing a friend, a family member, or a child that you know well, and usted to address a person with whom you have a more formal or distant relationship. Somebody, a boss at work. Your coworkers at work, that would be tú, I assume. Your boss, if it's somebody you're, whatever, say yes sir or yes ma'am to. I mentioned in a different lecture that if it's somebody you would say dude to, then use tú. If it's somebody you wouldn't feel comfortable saying, hey dude, come over here, you know, your boss, your preacher, a teacher, an elderly person, then you're going to use usted. So some examples in the bottom, and I'll have you repeat this after me, okay? So, tú eres de Canadá, ¿verdad, David? So repeat that. Tú eres de Canadá, ¿verdad, David? You are from Canada, right, David? And then, usted es la profesora de español, Usted es la profesora de español. Are you the Spanish professor? So David in the first sentence is your friend. You're just casually talking to him. Whereas a teacher, a professor, you have a more formal distant relationship with. You're probably not going to call him or her by their first name. You're going to treat them with a little bit of respect. So that's some of the differences between tú and usted. We mentioned earlier that in a group, if there's one male present, it becomes a masculine group. So nosotros, vosotros, and ellos all refer either to a group of males only or to a group of males and females. The feminine form, nosotras, vosotras, and ellas, refer only to groups made up exclusively of females. So in the picture, the bottom left, you have three guys. You would say nosotros or vosotros, ellos. In the middle one, there's men and women. You go back, nosotros, vosotros, ellos. Whereas in the third group, those smart ladies studying in the library together are exclusively female, nosotras, vosotras, and ellas. Now, one thing that's pretty cool is there's no Spanish equivalent to the subject pronoun it. If you say things like it's raining, or it is important, or it is a dog, you just skip the it. There's no it. And we use the word es, which is a form of ser that we'll get to in just a minute. So generally, it is not expressed in Spanish as a subject. Instead, just use a verb, and the it is implied. So, es un problema. Clases repitan, es un problema. It's a problem. Es una computadora. I mean, it's a computer. So we're not translating it as a subject pronoun. We'll get later to other pronouns when we do use a form of it, but not as a subject of a sentence. You just have just the verb. So ser, this verb ser, is a super irregular verb in Spanish. It's actually the most irregular verb there is. Its forms don't follow any regular pattern that most verbs will follow. That will be like yeah. So you're going to need to memorize the forms of the verb ser. As we get to other verbs, there'll be patterns that you'll be able to follow, but for ser, it's going to be straight memorization. When you take a verb, an infinitive, in English, all our infinitives have the word to. So to be is the infinitive of the form of the verb be. In Spanish, the verb ser is the infinitive. And then you conjugate it, meaning you change that root, that verb, to match the 6 different boxes: the first person, second person, third person, singular, first person, second person, third person, plural. So in Spanish, to memorize, the first person singular form for yo, for I, is soy. Clases repitan, soy. For tú, it's eres. Eres. Remember, for the E, you're going to go wide with your mouth. Eres. Clases repitan, eres. For usted, remember we said usted, even though the second person is following the third person singular conjugation. Usted, él, or ella, it is es. Clases repitan, es. Okay, and we've seen all these words as you've been just memorizing sentences. Now you're going to understand where these words come from. So clase, yo soy, tú eres, usted es, él es, ella es. Then the plural side, nosotros or nosotras somos. Clases repitan, somos. Vosotros o vosotras sois. Clases repitan, sois. Sounds like soisas. The third person, ustedes, ellos, ellas, son. Clases repitan, son. So the plural forms are somos, sois, son. Yo soy, tú eres, usted, él, ella es. Nosotros o nosotras somos. Vosotros o vosotras sois. Ustedes, ellos, ellas son. That's the conjugation of the verb ser. Some things to remember is that while ser is irregular, you got to memorize the forms. And then remember that when you're talking about groups of people, if you're substituting out that pronoun for the subject pronoun. So for example, if you look on the table on the left, ser, under nosotros, it's we, but it also means Pablo y yo. So even if you're not saying the word nosotros, Pablo and I are going to the store, that's inherent in we. So you're going to use that first person plural conjugation. So yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, usted es, Pablo es, María es, Mi perro es, whatever there's something in the third person singular, that's the form of the verb es, the verb ser, that's es. Nosotros somos, nosotras somos, Pablo y yo somos, mi familia somos, anything that's going to include you, that's going to be a we, that's how you conjugate the verb. Vosotros, vosotras, vosotros sois, vosotras sois. You could even say, for example, tú y María sois mis amigos, right? So if I'm saying y'all and you're included in that, then that's the form of the verb ser. Ellos son, ellas son, ustedes son, Pablo y Juan son mis amigos. Anything that fits third person plural is going to be conjugated son. So again, we have soy, eres, es, somos, sois, and son. Okay, so here's a little reminder. Ser, or a mnemonic, I guess. Ser is used to indicate date, occupation, characteristics, time, origin, and relationships, among other things. But that spells out the word doctor, which is important to me. That's what I am. But that is a way to remember some of the uses of the verb ser, and we'll get to that in another lesson again. But you'll understand where that fits in. What I want you to do for the exercise is to look at the table on the left, and you're going to write down the different forms of the verb ser, the different conjugations for first, second, third person singular and plural. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, write it out, and we'll check and see how you did. Okay, you've unpaused your video. Hopefully you did stop and actually write these down. Again, you're going to learn by listening, seeing, watching, writing, all those things together. So here are the answers. Yo soy. Clases repitan. Yo soy. Tú eres. Él, ella, usted es. Nosotros, nosotras somos. Vosotros, vosotras sois. Ellos, ellas, ustedes son. Okay? Hope you got them. If not, you're going to want to pause here and go back and do it again. You're going to have to, again, memorize these and use it enough that it just becomes rote, that you just know what these forms of the verb are. Okay, we said ser is used to identify people and things. ¿Quién es él? Who is he? Es Felipe Díaz Velázquez. He's Felipe Díaz Velázquez. Now note, es, that word, the verb es, the third person singular es, can only be used with a third person singular. So if someone says in that dialogue, ¿Quién es él? Es Felipe Díaz Velázquez. You don't need to repeat the él. You don't have to say él es Felipe Díaz Velázquez, because that's inherent. It's already understood in the word es, as you're talking about him, and the context comes from that first sentence. The second one on the right, ¿Qué es? What is it? Es un mapa de España. It's a map of Spain. Again, there's the subject pronoun it doesn't translate. You don't need it. So what is it? It's a map of Spain. You have the story on the left about the bottom about the foreign exchange student that's in Panorama. It's a great student, a great story. So ella es Marisa, es Marisa. Es una maleta, it's a suitcase. She is Marisa. You don't have to say the ella because it's already understood. And es una maleta. If you haven't already talked about this subject, then you use the word for the subject, right? But if you're going back and you already know this, Marissa, you don't have to say the ella es Marisa. If there's a doubt what you're talking about, then yes, throw the subject pronoun in there. All right, ser also expresses possession, and something very important in Spanish, there's no apostrophe s. There's no Pablo's friend. There's no way of saying that possessive by adding an apostrophe s to, I can't think of any other examples, I'm sorry, John's book, Mary's pencil. So what we say is, it's the friend of Pablo. It's the book of John. It's the pencil of Mary. So instead of saying Pablo's friend, we say el amigo de Pablo. If you're saying he is Pablo's friend, él es el amigo de Pablo. Juan es el amigo de Pablo. But that's how you express possession, is by saying the noun and de, which means of in this case, and then the owner. So on the bottom in the green, we have de quién es. De means of, or of who is this? In English, we'd say, whose is it? ¿De quién es? You would say, es de María, or es el diario de Mauro. It's Mauro's diary. Next one, ¿de quién son? Whose are they? Son los lápices de la chica. They're the girl's pencils. So there's no apostrophe s to show possession. You're going to use the word de, showing ownership, and put it out in a sentence altogether. Okay. And again, we'll do some examples, but that's important to understand. There's no apostrophe s to show possession. Okay. Now there are very few contractions in Spanish. In English, we have them all over the place. In Spanish, we really have basically two. When de plus el, meaning the, we talked about articles in a different lesson, de plus el combine to make the contraction del. So there's a restaurant called Del Taco. Del Taco means it's a restaurant of the taco. That's where del comes from. Del does not contract with la, las, los, or el with the accent, which means he. Remember, there are two different words. El without an accent is the article, the definite article. El with an accent is a subject pronoun, that means he. So del does not form, de does not form a contraction with that el, with the accent. So in the box, es la computadora del conductor. We don't say es la computadora de el conductor. And really, it's just formed over the years because we say that so fast because it ends and begins with the same letter. Es la computadora del conductor. Son las maletas del chico. They're the boy's suitcases. They are the suitcases of the boy. Again, we're showing possession. So de plus el together makes a contraction. Okay, so here are five sentences. I want you to look at them and tell me if that de makes a contraction with the article or the word after it, and if so, what would it be? Okay, so pause for just a second and just go through and decide for yourself if it forms a contraction, and if so, what that contraction is. Okay. It's kind of funny for me because I don't pause. I'm assuming you're pausing, so then I welcome you back because you could have paused and gotten a drink or gone to a different class or something, but I just keep going. So, número uno, es el libro de el estudiante. Sí, that requires a contraction. Del estudiante. Es el libro del estudiante. Número dos, es el libro de la chica. Do we make a contraction out of de la? No, we don't. Es el libro de la chica. Número tres, es el libro de Paco. Do we make a contraction or no? There's no article. So it's just plain old Paco's book. Número cuatro, es el libro de el instructor. Do we combine that? Yes, we do. Es el libro del instructor. Número cinco, es el libro de él. Es el libro de él. But, ya han visto, you already saw, that él is a subject pronoun. That means he. So es el libro de él is the correct way of saying that. Remember that the bottom one, del, is not used here because the pronoun el is not the article. Okay, ser is also used with the preposition de to express origin. In this case, we would translate de, this de, more like from. So de can mean of if it's talking about possession, or it can mean from if it's talking about origin. This again goes back to the video of the foreign exchange student. ¿De dónde eres? Soy de Wisconsin. Where are you? I'm from Wisconsin. ¿De dónde es usted? Yo soy de Cuba. So that in that case, de is expressing origin or where something or someone is from. Okay, more examples. Repitan, por favor, repeat after me. ¿De dónde es Juan Carlos? ¿De dónde es Juan Carlos? Es de Argentina. Es de Argentina. Okay, where is Juan Carlos from? He's from Argentina. Again, because we've already established that the subject is Juan Carlos, we don't have to repeat that again in the second sentence. We don't have to say él. We could say Juan Carlos es de Argentina. Él es de Argentina, but all those things are implied in that verb es. So you can save yourself some words, be economical, and not have to repeat the subject. ¿De dónde es Maru? Repitan, por favor. ¿De dónde es Maru? Where is Maru from? Es de Costa Rica. Repitan, es de Costa Rica. She's from Costa Rica, okay? So we're showing origin with the word de. Okay, aquí tenemos 8 ejemplos, 8 examples. Choose the correct form of ser and fill in the box. And we'll go back and talk about it. Then I want you to listen and we'll repeat it. So pause, decide the correct form of the verb ser for each of those 8 examples, and then resume the video while I just sit here, and we'll talk about your answers. I did take a break. I'm a huge Diet Dr. Pepper fan. Would drink way too much of it. Número 1. Ellos son de Oregón. Okay? Hope you understood that. Ellos, third person plural, son de Oregón. Tú eres de California. Número 3. Juan, Mario y José son de Arizona. Número 4. Carlos y yo, so now I'm including myself, right? Carlos y yo somos de Nuevo México. Número 5. Yo soy de Texas. Número 6. Nosotros somos de Colorado. Número 7. Teresa es de Utah. Número 8. Ustedes son de Nevada. Okay, if you got them all right, high five, thumbs up. If you didn't, pause, go back, review, write down those forms of ser, the conjugations, and decide what it was that tripped you up. Remember, like a number 3, Juan, Mario, and Jose, that's them, right? That's they. They are from Arizona. Number 4, Carlos y yo, I'm including myself. That's got to be first person. There's more than one of me, so it's got to be plural. And so go back and review what maybe tripped you up on those. Okay, ser also expresses a profession or an occupation. Don Francisco es conductor. He is the driver. Yo soy estudiante. I'm a student. Yo soy maestro. Yo soy profesor. Yo soy doctor. Yo soy quiropráctico. Yo soy padre. I'm a father. Yo soy hermano. Yo soy tío. So anything you're expressing what somebody is, what they do, what their profession, occupation, or role is, we're going to use the verb ser. So that's one of the other uses of ser, and you can read more about that on page 20 as well. On page 21, unlike English, Spanish does not use the indefinite article after ser unless it's accompanied by an adjective. So in English, we say Marta is a teacher. In Spanish, we don't need to say a. Marta es profesora. But if she's an excellent professor, excellent teacher, Marta es una profesora excelente. So really, in the first one, we're saying what her job is, what her profession is. In the second one, now we're qualifying. We're not even really saying that she's a professor. We're saying she's an excellent professor. And so because there's an adjective involved in that sentence, it requires that article. Okay? That makes sense. So a couple examples. Here you go. Elena blank estudiante. What do you think? Do we need an article with that? No. María es estudiante. Elena blank estudiante buena. Now we've added an adjective, right? So Elena es una estudiante buena. We use that indefinite article because we added an adjective to describe Elena. Okay, something different from English and Spanish, sir. All right, here's another one. You're going to pause for a second. I want you to write, I encourage you to write these down, your answers, and then we'll go back and repeat them. So 5 examples, and you're going to use the correct form of the verb ser. And if anything else, maybe an article is appropriate or not. Okay, número 1. What did you get? Él es abogado. No article needed, right? Él, third person singular, es abogado. Número 2. Él es un abogado terrible. Do not call him when you get in a car accident. He is a terrible abogado, which means lawyer. So because we added an adjective, we're adding our indefinite article, un. Número 3. Elena y Lola son mecánicas. They are mechanics. Número 4. Elena y Lola son unas buenas mecánicas. Número 5. Nosotros somos maestros. Okay? Now we're going to go back. I want you to repeat them. Again, I'm trying to include all of your senses here. So please repeat after me. Él es abogado. Número 2. Él es un abogado terrible. Número 3. Elena y Lola son mecánicas. Número 4. Elena y Lola son unas buenas mecánicas. Muy bien. Número 5, nosotros somos maestros. It's funny because as I do this, as I pause, I'm either whispering the words again or saying them again to get the timing correct. So that's just strange for me. All right. So again, hopefully you got these right. If not, then please pause, go back and look up and see what you didn't understand. Okay, for this section, you're going to hear audio that's from Panorama. They're going to give you the model, de dónde es Pablo, the answer is Estados Unidos, and then you're going to form the last sentence that says, él es de los Estados Unidos. Okay, so take a second, 6 questions, figure it out. Pause, go through the answers, and then you'll hear the voice speaking and give you the correct answers. We'll go through that together, okay? Okay, here we go.
4. Preguntas. Answer each question you hear using the cue in your lab manual. Repeat the correct response after the speaker. Modelo. You hear.
¿De dónde es Pablo?
You see. Estados Unidos. You say. Él es de los Estados Unidos.
1. ¿De dónde eres tú?
Yo soy de España.
2. ¿De dónde son ustedes?
Nosotros somos de California.
3. ¿De dónde es el profesor?
Él es de México.
You could also say el profesor es de México if you wanted to.
4. ¿De dónde somos nosotros?
Ustedes son del Ecuador.
5. ¿De dónde soy yo?
Typo there on soy, sorry.
Tú eres de Puerto Rico.
6. ¿De dónde es la señora Sánchez?
Ella es de Colorado.
Okay, so again, some different variations there. On number 6, you don't have to say ella es de Colorado. You could just say es de Colorado. Number 2, you don't have to say nosotros. You could just say somos de California. It's not wrong. Either way, they're both correct. When you say somos de California, it can't mean anything else other than we, right? That's the only pronoun associated with somos. So there is some variety there. Number 3, you could say el profesor es de Mexico, él es de Mexico. You could just say es de Mexico. So you really have 3 different options there, and they're all correct. There's going to be a little bit of a difference in meaning and context, but you'll understand that as we go through this. So, all right, well, that includes the lesson for today. I did attach to this lesson some PDFs that I made of some blank verb trees, these here. So you're welcome to print those out if that helps. For me, that just, my brain just works like that in those forms. I can see first person, second person, third person, singular, plural. But that's what you want to get to where you can understand that. So again, that's just a resource for you. Otherwise, thank you guys. Have a great afternoon or great morning, great night, whatever it is for you. And let me know what kind of questions you have. I'm always available on Zoom for any kind of one-on-one or questions by email. All right, good luck.